welcome to Tinig Talks, where we give voice to stories and conversations that help us understand kids better, one episode at a time.
That's right. I'm Chai Orgales, and with me is July Canyon. And today's episode, we're talking about something that's both simple and challenging, helping kids find balance.
Totoo yan. Kasi even us adults struggle to manage time between work, rest, and hobbies. So imagine, di ba, how hard it must be for kids juggling school, chores, and play.
Grabe. Ikaw ba, July? How do you manage your time when you were a kid? How did you manage it? Tapos, how do you manage it now?
Kasi ako, when I was a kid, pasaway talaga akong bata. Like, kapag wala yung parents ko, talagang maglalaro lang ako. Like, hindi ako matutulog sa hapon, ganon. Pero, syempre, guided ako ng parents ko. May pagka-strict kasi sila. So, pag nandyan talaga sila, may structure talaga yung routine ko and everything. Like, pagka-uwi ko ng school, bawal ako maglaro agad sa labas. Dapat tapusin ko muna yung homeworks ko, which is valid naman. Pero as a kid kasi nun, syempre ako na-frustrate kasi gusto ko na maglaro sa labas. Pero now, as an adult, thankful ako na pinalaki ako ng parents ko that way kasi nadala ko siya ngayon sa adulthood. Like, ngayon pa nga lang nahihirapan na ako na kahit may structure yung routine ko, nahihirapan pa din ako. So what more if hindi ako ginaid ng parents ko when I was younger?
Right?
Ikaw ba, nung kid ka, how did you manage your time and ngayon din adult? Paano mo yeah.
Sa tingin ko, hindi ko pa din na ma-master yung pag-manage ng time ko eh. Kasi, I think, when I was a kid, palalabas lang din ako, like you, parang laging naglalaro din. Tapos, makikiusap sa mga friends.
Yeah.
Pero, when I was a kid, I think, nakukulangan ako sa focus eh. So, managing time was very struggle. It was like a really struggle for me. So, nang nag-adulthood na, throughout my years in college, I feel like I still struggle with it.
Yes.
Focus talaga.
O, diba, like tayo, adults na tayo ha, pero we're still having struggles when it comes to time management.
Real! So actually, this topic was also explored in one of the storybooks from the Tinig project. This one is called Islands of Time. So it follows a young girl named Nika who learns that every part of her life, studying, helping at home, having fun, and resting, needs time and care.
Dun sa kwento, may magic clock na bumibisita sa dreams ni Nika to help her. Pero kasi, hindi ganun ang reality. Wala namang magic clocks in real life to guide them. Pero, hindi lang naman magic ang pwedeng tumulong sa mga kids these days. Andito rin naman ang mga magulang or guardians. And that is what we'll be unpacking today. How parents and kids can keep all their islands glowing or manage their time wisely. So let's start with this. Why is time management such a challenge today for kids?
Well, there's just so much happening. Dati kasi limited lang naman yung pwede mong gawin eh. Yung mga bata, they can either have fun sa labas or they can also play with their toys inside. Sobrang dami na nilang different outlets or avenues of fun or playtime. And ang laki din ng effect kasi ng online digital world. Meron ng social media, meron ng online games, and even content creation for young kids. So, these things can be fun, but of course, also overwhelming.
Tapos, di ba, for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, sobrang dami na talagang simulators. We've gotten so used to constant simulation. Like, normal na ngayon na hindi ka pwedeng kumain na walang iPad sa harap mo. Like, lagi na siyang habit ng mga tao. Guilty din ako doon. And yung hindi ka makagawa ng schoolworks nang walang podcast na nagpi-play or music.
Diba?
Kasi nasanay na tayo na ang dami nating constant simulators. Na minsan, hindi natin napapansin, lalo na for kids na it can get overwhelming.
Right? Sobrang guilty ako dyan. Kasi that's why balance gets tricky. Sometimes kids stay up too late, tapos nag-rush sila ng homework, they forget to do their chores. Not because they're lazy, but because they haven't learned how to manage their time yet.
Exactly. And that's where parents or guardians come in. We can help them by guiding, not controlling. And kasi parents can make a flexible schedule, di ba, for the kids. para may choice pa din yung mga bata kung anong gusto nila gawin. Hindi naman kailangan super tight and rigid yung schedule. Like, what matters is dapat yung freedom is may structure. For example, instead of saying na dapat 3 p.m. sharp nag-aaral ka na, pwede naman like after mo mag-snack, pili ka anong gusto mong gawin. Mag-aaral ka ba muna or maglilinis?
Ano ba?
May leeway naman yung bata, di ba?
Yes. So it gives a sense of control and ownership sa oras nila. Pero guided pa rin, of course. So if kidfluencer nga rin yung bata, pwede rin after mo mag-homework, you can rest muna or film or edit mo 30 minutes, pwede mo sabihin yun sa kanya. Kasi when kids feel na may choice sila, mas magiging cooperative sila and less resistant sa mga routines.
Agree with you on that. Also, a second strategy is to set clear but kind limits on screen time. Hindi naman masama ang screen time, and to be honest, hindi na siya mawawala sa generation ngayon. Di ba ikaw, you have a nephew na bata pa. Talaga di bang hindi na nawawala yun sa generation nila?
Yes, oh my God. Kukwento ko yun sa nephew ko. Grabe. Like, kada araw, morning, noon, night, gusto niya talagang nagwa-watch talaga siya. Parang ngayon, kinaadikan niya yung YouTube Reels doon sa sa phone ng parents niya. So nakikita ko din minsan yung mga unfiltered na content kapag nag-scroll lang sila. Pag pinapabayaan mo yung phone sa kanila, grabe kung ano-ano yung napapanood nila tapos hindi na natin nakikita kasi it's really fast media.
Yes. And hindi naman kasi pwedeng completely pagbawalan na lang, di ba, ng parents. Kasi nga, ayun, like we mentioned, maging part na siya talaga ng reality and daily life sa mga bata ngayon. So, kung hindi talaga mapigilan, syempre, i-help na lang na i-monitor or i-guide kung paano nila gagamitin yung mga social media platforms or gadgets. Kasi ako, personally, kapag ako, kunyari may balak ako to do something like a chore, maghuhugas ng pinggan. Pero once sinabihan ako ng nanay ko or tatay ko na, maghugas ka na ng pinggan, parang nawawalan na ako ng gana kahit
Diba?
ako naman magkusa for it. So, ganun din sa mga bata na pag inutusan mo sila, huwag ka nang gagamit ng cellphone, ganyan. Syempre, magiging negative.
Magkakaroon ng,
Negative yung feelings nila about it.
minsan magkakaroon din sila ng urge to do that.
To do it more kasi parang nagre-rebelde sila. Kaya, it's important talaga ngayon na i-accept na natin na part talaga siya ng lives nila kasi it's part of how kids learn, play, and connect na rin kasi ngayon. And 'di ba, kung kidfluencer nga yung bata, syempre lalong imposible na walang screen time kasi yun naman talaga yung
Kaya
ginagawa.
nga eh.
Pero ang importante, may clear boundaries na hindi nakakasakay.
Pwedeng sabihin na, okay, after 1 hour of games, break muna tayo ha, pahinga ng ice, or drink water, mga ganon. Instead na, laro ka na lang ng laro, itatapon ko na yung cellphone mo. So, it gives this kind of negative connotation towards the child na, bawal ba to? Parang, ano ba ginagawa kong masama? So, tone matters din kasi. And when limits are set, kindly and consistently, mas madali nilang maiintindihan. That's why it's needed. Not just that it's a rule, pero syempre, ibang usapan naman yung kahit sobrang tigas na talaga ng ulo ng mga bata.
Kasi at the end of the day naman, parents can be strict and can be fair. Pero dapat may hint of kindness pa rin kasi at the end of the day, anak nila yun at bata yung kinakausap.
Exactly.
And to add on that, pwede ring a third possible strategy is to encourage both rest and hobbies. Minsan kasi focus tayo sa academics, sa chores, pero nakakalimutan natin na rest is also productive.
Yes.
Kids need downtime, kailangan nila ng tulog, quiet time, or kahit wala silang ginagawa at all, kailangan nila nung ganong time for themselves.
Yes, and at the same time, hobbies are healthy outlets for creativity and emotion. So instead of taking away playtime as punishment, we can help them balance both. Like, sinabi mo, tapusin mo muna yung homework mo para may oras ka sa favorite mong laro or drawing or anything that gives them the creative outlet.
Yes, and that way kasi they learn na balance is possible. Siyempre, ang balance is hindi naman either or. Kaya nga balancing, di ba? Kasi you're balancing two things or more at a time. Hindi yung pipili ka lang ng isa. That's why mahalaga talaga yung pagbataya.
Correct. And another strategy is to reward effort. So, ito din yung ginagawa din ng ng parents ng nephews ko. So, my brother is a really big believer in the reward system. So, if they do something good, so, nun sa house nila, meron silang mga chore charts, actually. It's really cute. So, every time they do a chore or they do something good, they get a star on the chore chart, and if they complete that, they get a reward na anything they want. Sobrang importante din to reward efforts, not just results. Kasi sobrang importante to when we only praise high grades or perfect outputs. Syempre, kids might feel na hindi enough yung effort nila. Parang hindi sila successful, you know?
Yes, kasi minsan, kahit nag-e-effort naman talaga yung bata, di ba? Minsan hindi natin nakukuha yung results na gusto natin. That's life. Kaya it's important to still reward them or remind them na, okay, na-acknowledge namin na nag-e-effort ka, para naman hindi naman ma-burn out yung bata or alam mo yun, magka-form ng negative feelings towards those type of things. And if we say things like, I'm proud that you manage your time today, or ang galing mo, nagawa mo yung homework mo, tapos nakapaglaro ka, like, you balance everything, we teach them to value process over perfection. It builds confidence and makes them more willing to try again, even when things don't go perfectly.
And I love that. Kasi, you know, sometimes parents focus too much on grades and achievements. So, I don't know if makaka-relate yung mga parents dyan, pero you forget that time management is a skill and that needs to be learned. Practice and patience.
Totoo dun sa part na time management is a skill talaga. Kasi, alam mo yun, may ibang adults or parents na ina-expect nila na yung mga bata. Kaya na nila agad i-manage yung time nila.
Oo.
Paano, sana nila malalaman paano gawin yun if
Oo.
they weren't guided or
That's
if they
true.
weren't taught. So, it's a skill talaga that you need to build. And part of that is showing kids that balance doesn't mean less fun. It just means healthier and more sustainable fun.
This episode of Tinig Talks is brought to you by the Munting Tinig Project and our Munting Cuentos storybooks. Meaningful stories for modern families raising digitally connected kids.
Moving on to our next segment, Tinig Stories. For this episode, we won't be having a guest, but we'll be sharing a story from one of the former kidfluencers the team got to interview before.
For this story, we'll call the former kidfluencer Kyle. So Kyle started making content way back 2017 pa. So he began with transition videos on TikTok, then later shifted into Roblox and gaming content. So according to him, I was making content lang solely for fun. Parang wala talaga akong plans to make this full-time. And then, I was receiving a lot of money na on my end. Then, when I turned legal, that's when I decided na to make this full-time. So, yung nafe-feel ko talaga back then, nung bata pa ako, it was only just for fun. But now kasi, since full-time na ako, seryoso na talaga siya.
Yeah. And as he started when he was younger, he was also balancing school, content creation. Thus for Kyle, school was always his priority. So Kyle mentioned in the interview that kasi yung talent and hobbies, nandun lang yan. Kunwari magaling ka kumanta, yung pagkakanta mo, andyan lang yan habang buhay. So, I do think na pag-aaral talaga ang importante. Nandito tayo sa third world country. So, kailangan natin ng diploma. Kailangan talagang makagraduate para makakuha ng better work and life. So, talagang education over work or talent pa rin talaga.
And hindi lang siya puro salita. Kyle really lived by that mindset. So he mentioned that he was independent with managing his time, and he took school seriously and managed his time the best he could. Pero syempre, like any student would, may struggles pa rin si Kyle.
Sabi niya minsan, nagkaka-struggle pa rin siya sa grades niya kasi mahirap i-balance talaga lahat kanya, of course. So, also, he prioritizes resting first, kaya lagi siyang nagka-cram later on. So, guilty din ako doon. Mahilig ako mag-cram, like, towards the end na ng deadline. Pero, sabi niya, he makes up for it a bit in other ways naman, like, always having perfect attendance. Wow. Sana all.
Can't relate, di ba?
May plus points na naman daw kasi. Sabi niya, okay. Sabi nga ni Kyle, pasok lang tayo ng pasok, aral din tayo ng aral. Wow, that is really insightful.
This shows us exactly what we mentioned earlier. Kasi sometimes, di ba, we focus too much on the results na we've overlooked the effort behind them. Makikita natin na si Kyle talaga, kahit mahirap, kahit nagkakram siya, talagang nag-e-effort pa rin naman siya in the end. And that's really admirable. And that wraps up Kyle's short but insightful story and experiences. Ikaw ba, what do you think about his story?
You know what I like about Cal's story? So, ang grounded niya kasi. Like, he's very much aware na he knows the reality of life, even at a young age. Tapos yung perspective niya about education, being his security, sobrang mature nun. Like, grabe, pag inisip mo na most kidfluencers kasi, I wouldn't say most, pero the some we know about, they really focus on making a business or like, it's their career.
Yes.
Pero for Kyle, grabe, he really sticks with education.
Yes, and kahit 'di ba mention niya na full-time na siya ngayong content creator, ina-acknowledge niya pa rin talaga yung importance ng education, 'di ba? Ang galing din na na-acknowledge niya yung limits niya. Like, very realistic talaga si Kyle na, alam mo yun, alam naman niya na, okay, medyo, kunyari, hindi na siya makahabol sa grades niya, medyo bumaba pa na. So, magme-makeup siya in other ways. Like, yun nga, perfect attendance, 'di ba? Yes, like, very, siya, talagang realistic and hindi yung mag-aim siya for something na hindi na healthy para sa kanya. Kasi for a lot of kidfluencers, minsan, hindi nila nakukuha yung ganong balance eh. Parang tuloy-tuloy na lang lagi yung pagpo-post ng content, yung growth, tapos nakakalimutan na nila to rest or just be kids.
Right? Tapos ang sobrang relatable din actually yung part na he still struggles with time management. Like, ako din, grabe din yung pag-struggle ko doon. Even now. Kasi kahit hindi ka influencer, you know, we've all been there, right? So, gusto mong magpahinga, tapos ayun, magka-framing ka later on. So, hirap din talaga, no?
Yes. Pero ang difference lang kasi kay Kyle, he owns it. Like we mentioned earlier, talagang ina-acknowledge naman niya yung limits niya. He knows na hindi siya perfect student, but he still tries his best. And I think that's what makes his story inspiring. It's not about being excellent all the time. Ang mahalaga is consistent ka.
Exactly! Ang galing na. Tapos, ang dami talagang, at a young age pa lang, very wise na, independent mag-isip. Like, Kyle.
Diba? Daig pa tayo. And it says a lot about how grounded some kidfluencers are na even with early fame or income, may iba pa rin pinipiling priorities. Which, in Kyle's case, education talaga yung priority niya.
So, guys, not all kids are good with being independent kagaya ni Kyle. So, kaya I think dito rin papasok yung role ng mga parents, no? Kasi kahit gaano ka independent or passionate yung bata, they still need guidance. Like, sana parents can help them set boundaries. Kunwari, may schedule lang for content creation, tapos may set din time for school, and of course, rest.
Yes, and of course, not in a controlling way. More on guiding lang talaga. Kasi iba yung pressure sa bata na may audience na nanonood sa kanila ha. And kung meron silang support system sa bahay, mas madali for them to stay grounded.
Kasi, you know, in the end, gusto lang naman natin na these kids grow up still loving what they do without losing themselves in the process.
It's nice to hear stories like that, no? Kasi reminder siya na social media success doesn't have to mean na i-give up mo yung student life mo. You can have both. Pwede mo siyang pagsabayin as long as may balance and discipline. So before we wrap up, let's share some practical tips families can try at home.
First, have a weekly balance check-in. So ask your child how their week went. Parang what felt fun, what felt stressful for them, and what they'd like to do differently next time. This gives an opportunity to open up to each other.
And second, use visual aids, spreading charts,
Oo.
stickers, color-coded planners. Diba yung mention mo sa nephew, sa family ng nephew,
Oo.
may chores sila na
Oo!
Cute
Ang
niya.
cute nun! Everyone should really implement that.
Kasi nagiging interesting siya for kids. Rather than parang dinedread nila yung chores.
Chores, yes.
And pwede rin even drawing their own islands of time in reference dun sa kwento na dating kwento series.
Of course.
So it makes time management feel playful, and less like a chore.
And third, remember that balance is something learned, not something kids are instantly good at. They'll make mistakes, and that's okay. What matters is that they have support and space to try again.
So to all our listeners, whether you're a parent, teacher, or even an older sibling, remember that helping kids find balance isn't about control. It's about guidance.
And when we help them give time to school, home, play, and rest, every island in their life shines a little brighter.
And we'd love to hear from you. How do you help your kids or students manage their time? You can share your stories with us on our social media pages.
And don't forget to tune in next time for another episode of Tinig Talks, where we'll be talking about relationships with friends. Ooh.
This has been Tinig Talks, where every voice matters.
And every story finds its time to shine. See you next episode!